go!
Greetings, welcome along. How are ya? It's time for another interesting music conversation. Inspire and be inspired, I call it. Today I have one of London's finest, and as always when I begin, I just have to make sure that I'm not muted. I have to make sure that we are still streaming because we do get plagued with technical issues. Everything appears to be fine. Thank you for being here. Shouts out to Chris Barron for being one of the early ones to comment. If you are passing through and you do want to leave any comments, then leave a shout out. I want to say hi to my esteemed guest today. Switching over immediately to Mr. Stuart Patterson. How are you, my friend? You okay?
Very well, Andy, and thanks for inviting me on. Looking forward to it.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Just get the introductions out of the way and let everybody know, because I'm assuming we're going to get one or two of your friends who might be checking out my channel for the first time. They'll see me get tongue twisted. They'll see me get flustered, make sure everything is working. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, I start to calm down and settle into it. I'm slightly nervous talking to a gentleman who is no stranger to the interview scene. I know a wordsmith as well for your many years in the industry. So I'm sure you're going to be gentle with me. Everything is looking fine. It's looking great. Thank you to all the crew that come back and check out the recording. So, Stuart, is it Stuart, Stu? How do you prefer?
Yeah, it's either. You know, Stu. I'm easy.
Stu works. Okay, so let me put a bit of perspective on this. Our paths have crossed a few times down the years, more notably with your involvement at East Village when I was coming down and playing regularly. But other than that, obviously, you've been a huge name on the circuit for many years. But we haven't really had much to do with one another. So I'm looking forward to this conversation from a very selfish point of view, because I'm going to find out a little bit more about you. As always, I don't like to do too much digging into the official bios because they're the same old questions they get asked again and again. And I want to find out a little bit more about yourself, the man behind the music. It's a cliche, but that's what I like to try and unearth, find out more about you. You're quite comfortable being interviewed, right? No stranger to answering questions many times.
No, but it was weird. I've just realised I've not done a Zoom since pandemic. It's as you could probably tell from my technical issues earlier. But it was weird. It's sort of strange going back onto the Zoom. I know people do it all the time, but but a reminder of that horrible time, but we won't talk about that. But I mean, it's all changed, hasn't it? I mean, it was all magazine written interviews for years, and then it was online, and now there's more and more of these, a great visual and audio podcasts going on, which I think people are really, connecting with.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, you have in recent times, I've seen you've jumped on board with the live mixes, heavily involved with Defected now. You've been enjoying that. So we are going to get to talk to that. I am having a little bit of buffering with your laptop, but it's not interfering too much with the audio. It's not going to detract from our interview. So I just want to draw a reference to that because we have noticed that from the very beginning. So let's roll it back then. Tell me about Stuart Patterson. You can be specific if you want, or you can skirt around the year you were born and where you were brought up, and paint a picture of life for yourself as a youngster.
The early days. Well, I was actually born in South Africa, but came back with my mum when I was less than a year old. So, but I did have a South African passport until I was about 12. But now British citizen, but then grew up in, went to school, grew up, and my mum still lives in, and my old friends are all from Bucks. So it was school in Wickham. I lived in Wickham, lived in Cheltenham St Peter's, that's in Bucks. And then, but then just got the club bug, and I think was going up to events from about the age of 16. Just getting into the music and then going to early nights. I mean, I think one of the earliest nights I went to was there was 3 of us, and my mate won a competition to get LWR, the old pirate, which we used to listen to. We used to go and sit in his car on a high hill because it's the only place you could hear LWR, and we were listening to stuff like Jazzy M's, Jack in Zone, and we loved it. But then another mate won a competition with a day out with LWR, and we had to go to Trends in Stoke Newington to collect the prize, and that was an eye opener. Three kind of white 16, 17-year-old boys going into Trends in Stoke Newington, and that was a serious club, and that was one of the first kind of ventures into London. But then we started doing the suburban thing like Special Branch, Nicky Holloway's parties, and a more London thing. I remember going to the early Westworlds, and I was still 16, 17, so not old enough to.
So let me put a pause. Let me pause you just there. One of your pals comes in, Dean Endicott. He says hi, Stu. Terry Hobbs also passes in and says hi. So we are getting people coming through.
Hello, James.
And yeah, thanks for being here. I want to roll you back just a little bit because I want to find out about life before music and before the clubs, just ever so briefly. Tell us what were you like at school? Were you did you have an identity on the fashion wise or anything?
Because we're in Bucks, so it's the only county I think that still does the 12 plus with free grammar education. So I was actually, believe it or not, quite bright as a kid, but then kind of just got into music and girls and just got sidetracked really, but did okay. But I ended up going to grammar school in Wickham, John Hampden, mainly because they had a good football team which I didn't even get into, so that was a waste of time. But so that was growing up. But yeah, I mean, early musical things. It was like my mum got remarried, and it was literally my stepdad had a record collection. And I remember going through it, and it was wide, but it was Motown compilations and Curtis Mayfield albums was the ones that I stole. And like many of us, it was the pop stuff was like Madness and Specials, but you could tell from an early age where I was going. Other mates that were into Iron Maiden, I hated. So from that 12, when you're starting to acknowledge music, it was definitely, there was a soul factor to it without a doubt. So that's that was my early, albeit commercial, but that was my I had that love of our music from when I started acknowledging music, and even from like everyone did taping Top of the Pops. It was always thinking back, it was always a certain sound.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, and so the pals that you were kicking about with, were you? Actually, that just reminds me. Cy Gracia says good evening, giving you a big shout out, saying a big Arsenal fan, and said you had a great set for them many times down at the Manor. So when I said about kicking about, that reminded me. Your early friends, any of those would progress into the music scene later on, or?
And I mean, not really. I mean, there was a guy called the guy was talking about the one, but we were just in it for music. We weren't really. We were sort of mates, but yeah, there's a guy called Alex Gold. But he I haven't seen him for years, but he went off into the trance world. But no, I mean, I'm still the mates. A lot of them, and the mates I've still got, funnily enough, or they still come out occasionally. They're not. We're of a certain age now, so they're not going to be going out every week. But yeah, they've come through it with me a lot, and they have a love. Not as passionate as me. They don't do it as a job, but they have a love for the music, and they still enjoy going out. And that goes back to a couple of schoolmates really that are still very good friends and still do come out. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so let's get messy then. Let's talk about those times. You mentioned Special Branch times. You mentioned a few other parties in and around London. What was it that immediately you can recall? Are you getting emails or something clicking up on your laptop? I can hear something.
I'm going to turn that off. Yeah, it's I'll get that off in a sec.
Because I don't know why, but I am still getting quite a bit of buffering, and that's why we're talking over each other. I don't know whether it might be better for you to jump on your phone. Is that would that be possible for you, or would that be a pain? You got a charger for it?
Yeah, it's in. So let's give it a go.
Are you on the although have you got 4G on your phone? Because I'm thinking it might be something to do with the Wi-Fi. I've no idea why we're getting the issues, but it's not my end.
Right. Do you want to try and persevere, or is it really bad?
It's not bad at all. It's not bad at all. Let's carry on. Let's carry on. To be fair, it's not interfering with the audio. It's just that you're jumping on the visuals, but it's not taken away from the interview. That's just me, but fannying about. Don't worry about it. Okay, so yeah, cool. Stop. Cool. Clubs.
Let me turn that off. There we go. That's all. That will stop popping up. Okay. Yeah. So I mean there was, you know, we went to like the Bournemouth, the Boscombe Soul Weekenders. That was an early introduction, but I took a lot from going to events like Westworld, where there was a lot of huge production values. I mean, you know, they used to do themes, you know, and when I say theme, this is so non-cheesy, but you know, they would turn Brixton Academy into you know, they'd have full fairground in there, and they used to do the Waterworld in Lily, Fulham, Baths, and there was high production value. So there was drama alongside the music, and that all. I mean, you know, unfortunately, probably a different story, but you know, with the cost of the advent of the agent and the DJ cost rising, you know, there's not that opportunity to go as mad on the production as there used to be, but. And even to an extent, Special Branch, they had the pop visuals, and you know, they I mean, they were dealing with some pretty crummy venues, so they had to dress them. But it was just the spectacle, and you know, and as a 16, 17-year-old from Bucks, you're going to these, you know, and I think. We for, you know, somehow we ended up going to the best parties. You know, we weren't dealing with rubbish, so it was a great starting point to go to those events. And you know, you're hearing DJs like you know, early, you know, your Pete Tongs and your Giles Petersons at Special Branch, and people, you know, like Trevor Fung or Derek B at Westworld. So there's a difference there, but they're all very good DJs for a 16, 17-year-old to be listening to, you know.
Could you
people, and CJ McIntosh and Dave. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was definitely the Special Branch was a bit more sort of, I'd say, the very cool end of the suburban soul scene, and something like Westworld. A club we used to go to a lot in the West End was Raw, off Tottenham Court Road, and that was a proper London sort of fashion stroke music thing, and that was like Dave Durrell and an early CJ McIntosh playing. So you've got, you know, there's a lot of influences going on, and a lot of that time, that was just pre-house, or it was just when house was coming out. So we were kind of exposed to sort of rare groove and hip hop, and then suddenly you've got this house coming in that we jumped on immediately. You know, we were like, oh, what's this new music? So, and then I was just torn. I mean, you know, that was fun. That was weird times when you go to something like a Special Branch, and the crowd was kind of split. It was like, oh, we don't want house, we want, you know, the soul and the hip hop. So it was kind of, you know, it was a strange time, and a lot of people went different ways, stayed with the soul thing, and all moved with the house. But I mean, I've gone more house, but I you know, I love it all. You know, as you could see from the old East Village program, we did reggae to hip hop to jazz to house, which is, you know, house my main thing, but I love it all. But it was a really great starting point, and then we just got, I mean, you know, we just copied. We were like, wow, this is great, let's do a party, you know. And we literally had 6 months of doing that, and then we were throwing our own parties. I mean, I threw my first party when I was 17 at the glorious Loudwater British Legion, but we had Yummy, LWR's Monster Mixer, coming out of London. We had, I can't remember the guy's name, but we had Special Branch's sound system. So we were, you know, we were copycatting, but we were bringing out was what was going on in London, you know. And then I was running, you know, I think I gave Norman J one of his first gig. I remember him driving out in his Mini. I won't say how much he charged us then, but you wouldn't mind getting him for that now. Exactly. So that, that was 87, a place called Henry's in Burnham Beeches, which is, just in the middle of nowhere on the outskirts of Slough. We had Simon Dunmore, obviously Defected fame. He came and played. But I was 17, I was running these nights when I wasn't old enough to be in the venue, so it was, I was just thinking that today. So that's, it is literally, I've been running and I was DJing at them as well, warming up for these people. So I've been DJing and throwing parties for 35 years now. And it's, I just realized that today, thinking about this tonight. And I was like, wow, that is a long time. And I'd have had no idea if you'd have told me as a 17-year-old that I'd have made a living out of this and still be doing it 35 years later. I'd have just said, you're mad. That, who's going to want to go and see a 50-year-old DJing and running nights? And it's, it's great. It's great. And it's great to see, older DJs still doing so well. And it's an inspiration that it means we can all still keep going in this business we love. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to talk about the longevity of the scene a little later on. Mr. Magoo sends out a shout. He says, Tooley Street massive. That doesn't mean much to me. I'm sorry. And then also the Froggy Sounds.
That's a special branch. Yeah, well, I mean, Froggy. I was never around with Froggy for the original days, but my old agent Matt was also Essex guy, was a friend of Froggy, so we actually got to know each other and did a few things with Froggy, more recently, and before he sadly passed. But I mean, like Tooley Street was a special branch thing, and Froggy obviously was a massive inspiration to so many, and was one of the first people to mix in this country and bring that. He met Larry, didn't he, at Paradise Garage? So, big inspirational names there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So as a 17-year-old, do you have recollections of ever feeling out of your depth and running into a few tasty people and thinking, okay, we need to rethink about what we're doing here?
I mean, I think no. I mean, and I mean, we'll probably get onto it later. But I had later I went on to running a bar in Holston, and which is known as one of the roughest parts of London, and people were like, we had a couple of little shakedowns, but nothing major. But no, going back to as a 17-year-old, I think people just think maybe you get a certain amount of leeway because you're that young, and people think fair play, for these guys doing it so young. And I mean, no, I can't really. I mean, maybe we did, and I just can't remember.
Nothing enough to traumatize you 30 years later.
Exactly. So no, and it was it was real fun times because it was all new and exciting, and and we were the sort of first people to do it in our little micro area. Mm-hmm. So it was well received.
Right. So then as the scene splintered and careers were forged and sounds and scenes emerged, how did you naturally find yourself progressing?
Well, I mean, I had a few years that just kind of, I just lost my sort of, well, I mean, basically my mum was like, you need to get a proper job, and now she laughs about that. But yeah, I mean, I did my first job was at NatWest in Slough for a year out of school, and I remember just sitting there designing flyers, made up flyers that parties weren't even going on because I was so bored with the work, and I was just like, so after a year, I mean, I was they wanted to fast track me, and I was just like, I can't do this. So from after about 17 for about 5 years, I had a real sort of tough time of what am I, I love this music, but what am I doing? What music am I into? Am I a house head or am I, and I think at that time it was like, you're either one or the other. And I was still, and I'd sort of just come into this rare groove scene, as it was called, the sort of 70s funk, and then the house thing. And then so I wanted to go and discover, and I still loved hip hop, and I still do, but, I was loving hip hop. And I was like, well, I still want to find out about all these older records, so it was it was a weird tough time trying different jobs that I didn't like, and not being able to see how I could make a living out of this, what I did. And the main thing I did was to say, well, look, I can't, I kept trying to do things in bucks, and it was hit or miss. And there was, there just wasn't enough people there to sustain it. So I was like, I've got to move to London. Even though I didn't really have a job. I was like, I've got to move to London. And
so is this
and that was
in
it.
the midst?
That was the start. And
sorry, forgive me for talking over you. I'm still having this buffering. So this would be in the midst of like the huge warehouse explosion, the illegal raves and stuff, right?
Yeah,
just after that.
I did a few of those out our way. I mean, the funniest one from memory was literally under a bypass in Marlow, between Marlow and Henley, and we rolled the sound system down the bypass. We got the sound system in there, and there was like a dead cow in the. You had to jump over the water to get in this thing. And then I remember me and my mate were taking the sound system back at about 7:30 in the morning, and the farmers coming the other way, and we're just like, let's get out of here. But that was so we did our little version of Bucks warehouse parties there. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of when I was doing a lot in 87, 88 and 89, and then I just sort of had a sort of 3 year break when I just maybe lost a bit of confidence, or didn't put events on. And then I think I started up again in 92. And started working. I think we did a joint party with I think Clive Henry and Rocky from the Flying Crew. They were kind of West London. We were just on the outside, but that was at David Lloyd Centre in Hounslow, and that was really successful. And I think then I moved into West London, literally in a bed sit in Harlesden. That's all I can afford, and got a residency just by. First night I put on was at a club called Woodies on a Friday night. Again, I think I had Norman Jay and Terry Farley on the opening night, which was really great. Second week was okay. Third week was dead. Fourth week was empty. That was, I didn't know what I was doing. Promoting a weekly club in London, and you're not going to.
Can you remember immediately?
Norman Jay and Farley every week.
Can you remember immediately what you may have been up against? Who you would have been up against?
Sorry, I lost you a bit there, Andy.
Yeah, say that again. I was saying, can you recall when you were saying some of the nights were hit and miss? Can you remember other nights in a certain radius you might have been up against?
No, I mean, so if we were doing Woodies, you'd have Subterranea down the road that I might have been competing with, the likes of Graham Ball doing Choice, or, but I just didn't know enough people in London at that point. I look back now and, I think trying to do a weekly, I don't think there really isn't many weekly, the whole landscape has changed so much. I really, there's hardly any weekly events out there now. It's totally changed. It's all about big festivals or one, or it's or who that big guest DJ is this week. But the main thing was I didn't really, I was still at that point probably only 22, so I didn't know enough. I didn't know enough people. I didn't know enough DJs. But what it did do, it got me in the door, because I've always, as a promoter, I've always grafted, and I think another local promoter who was running a place called the Canal Brasserie in Kensal Rise saw how hard I was working, and probably thought, well, he can help me promote my own night. So I became a resident off the back of Woodies being a failure at this sort of, it was a bar stroke club, but very cool. But I got a residency there on a Friday night, and from that things just. I mean, this is probably a bit later, probably 95, but things then that started spiraling. That's when I teamed up with Leo Zero, Leo Elstob, who I worked with for years. And we ended up running. We did a night called Shrink to Fit at Bar Rumba and other various London venues that went really well. And then we got together and did Soulsonic, which was the real springboard to actually getting some success and getting noticed. That's a bit of a big jump. That was 98, but
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
it was a few.
It is impossible to get all of this down perfectly chronologically. But a couple of names here. Mr. Miller says a shout out to you, Stu. He says Killer Groove, Henry's, Devil May Care, Good Times.
So yeah, that was it. Killer Groove. That was our first night. Well remembered. That was it at Stages in Cheshire and the glorious Loudwater British Legion. You got to start somewhere. But yeah.
So Poppy Day has a whole new meaning for you, right?
I don't think it's still there, the old, but because I still pop back and see my mum and my old mates, and I don't think it's there anymore. But yeah, maybe we should put a Killer Groove plaque up there or something.
A big blue plaque. Great. Okay, so we got into like 95, the mid 90s, and the sound and the scene. At this time, then you're rolling along with a lot of other people, getting to know a few more promoters. Were you getting to travel yourself? Were you becoming known as a named DJ yourself outside of the circle?
Well, I mean, that was so we I've just mentioned Soulsonic, so I partnered up with Leo, and then we did a few. I think we did a couple. We did a tester party at Subterranea, which is, that was a very popular club at that time, and a big club, and a club with a good reputation under the Westway in Ladbroke Grove. And they offered us every Saturday, and we took it, and we actually managed to last 2 years. And I just have thought of that now. It's just the work, but it wouldn't work. Like I've just mentioned, everything's moved now to the one-off. What
did you find was your most successful way of promoting back then? Literally just flyers outside.
Well, I mean, Leo was, which really helped. Is a fantastic designer. So we had this really strong, imagery to go on. We had a great visuals guy, Louis, and the sound was good in Subterranean. We put really good lineups, but this is us with that. I think with me and House, I've kind of, I really enjoy the soulful scene, but then I really enjoy someone like Danny Tenaglia that's completely different, whereas other people can't. A lot of people are one or the other, but there's a few people that do. But we'd have people like Kenny Hawks and Luke Solomon from Space, the Bar Rumba. That was a really popular night midweek at the time. You'd have the Boyzone crew like Farley and Hella, but then we'd have people like Kerry Chandler, and I won't tell you what we paid for him back then. And the Americans, and then your Paul Trouble Andersons, and so it was house, but a very broad, a big umbrella of house. And we played it was the time of the super clubs, and we played being anti that, being anti. Just what everything that a super club was about. So it was that period, and we were like, right, we're going to pitch ourselves against that, and it that helped. But on the promo front, it was lit flyers and posters all over London, flyer tins on the night in West London because it was on Portobello Road. That was 98, so I'm thinking that's probably just about the time of the internet coming through. So I don't know. I think maybe 99. Well, when I started.
For us, I think it was 99, 2000, really, we would have started using the internet, possibly.
Yeah, well, I remember sitting there, that was it. We'd have the old mailing list, and you go down, and I'd get the mailing list copied at the photocopy with the stickers on, and we'd sit there and do the flyers with so we were doing posted mail outs, and that was so labor intensive, and you're doing that every week. So, but again, as we're still in our 20s, so there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot, and at that point I was living, I still am living in West London. So I've stayed in the area since moving up, and at that point, you're 3, 4, 5 years in, I am actually knowing a lot of people. So you'd have this huge sort of concession list. But we were kind of ushered out in the end. We were by no means turning people away every week. When you got your likes of your Kerry Chandler playing, then you're full, and then we'd have down weeks. But I think the fact that we lasted a year at Subterranean, then we went into the Annex in Dean Street in Soho, which is smaller, but that was great. But I think you were saying when that was the time I started getting, I think I'm getting noticed, but we originally started Soulsonic at Subterranean with BBE, lovely Pete and Ben then was in it, and but then me and Leo just carried it on our own. But I've remained good friends with Pete to this day. But we did a Soulsonic compilation with BBE. And so from sort of having a residency from a year, I think we got, and sorry if I forgot who did the press, but we had a really good press. I mean, it is 25 years ago. We had a really good press officer. And suddenly I'm like DJ of the month in the Face magazine and DJ of the month in ID magazine and 2-page spread in DJ and Mix Mag. And it's like, you don't realise, and then suddenly I'm like, I can't be resident at the club anymore because I'm getting offers everywhere. So it's gone from sign of in a real short time, and kind of lucky really, but just a real short time of having that residency to saying to Leo, look, I'm only going to be at the club once a month. Is that fair? What do we do? And then so then you get in foreign gigs and then playing all over the UK. So we stopped the Saturday night. But at that time, Terry Farley was our guest DJ and then approached me and said, look, I want to start this new night called Faith. Do I want to be part of it? And resident DJ co-promoter. And I was like, yeah. So that just followed on beautifully because Soulsonic, we carried it on, but as a monthly in different venues over London. But then Faith took over, and Faith really took over. I think we did our first party actually at the Annex in 99 in the summer with 300 people. The second one we did Fabric on Boxing Day, and it was 99 because I remember I think we upset Fabric a bit, or everyone was doing these silly ticket prices for New Year's Eve because it was a millennium. I got burnt, every promoter got burnt for being silly. But we did this £5 ticket for Fabric called the anti rip-off, millennium rip-off party on Boxing Day of 99, and went from 300 people to a 2,000 sellout. And then that Faith from that point for the next few years was just unstoppable. I mean, without sounding arrogant, it was for a good couple of years the hottest party in London.
Let me ask you about the Faith. Sorry, let me ask you about the Faith phenomenon, because obviously, as you say, it went on to huge things. I've got a few misconceptions about Faith back in the day. That it was very cliquey, very close-knit, bunch of like ex-football fans. I'm fully aware that this is incorrect, but that was my misconception at the time. Was there any justification in me having that?
Well, I think there was a lot of that about Boys Own. I think that was not speaking out of turn, but I think there was that. Feeling maybe more about Boys Own, whereas Faith was we always tried to be really inclusive.
Well, maybe that's where that's where I'm probably incorrect. Then I'm thinking a few years prior.
No, we were. We tried, with in every way, to be, one of the, I think, and to this day, we did a party a few weeks ago and people just come up and say, I come here because it's the friendliest night I know of. And, so, I think we're, it's.
Well, I was very surprised where I saw the video.
Changed.
And I just want to say again to people, there is a slight delay, so that's why I'm talking over Stuart. I'm trying my best not to. The video that you did, the party that you did recently, when I saw the crowd, I was like, okay, that's like, it's a really great crowd they're having. Everyone's having a great time. Everyone's loving it. So Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to the timeline. 99 into the 2000s and the explosion of
Yeah,
faith.
yeah. So for we, and then we, so yeah, with Faith, we were there, and so and then the fanzine came around. So Terry, obviously, with his Boys Own was all about not all about, but it was about parties and the fanzine. So then with the parties were going well, and he went, well, let's do a fanzine. And Leo, then we brought Leo on board. Leo Ostop again on board, a fantastic designer. So the first four um, fanzines were designed by Leo, and still look amazing to this day. So we had the fanzines going, and we did compilations once again with BBE later, but we did one with Dave Piccioni at Black Market. A few more. So it was for 4 or 5 years, I think it was just, it would be, we didn't have to do flyers. I mean, I think we did anyway, because Leo was such a good designer and they looked great, but you didn't have to push it. It would be a sellout. We were doing boat parties for 700 people. We could do big events and just not sweat it, just sell out, and a real opportunity to we had, Honey Dijon, one of our first gigs, and we had, all sorts of people have played for. I mean, every now it'd be going for so long, but your Derek Carter's, your DJ Sneaks, your Kerry Johnny. A great one was Kerry Chandler. We had him at Cargo on Boxing Day, and then we had a secret after party at Plastic People afterwards. And I remember playing 5 hours back to back with Kerry, just tune on, tune off, which was amazing. And did party in Brighton. We did Faith Brighton, which we still do. Which was really successful, and it was a strong time, but like anything, it had its time. And I remember we did our 10th birthday in Vauxhall, and
what
we had
year
a great
was that?
lineup. We had Amor,
2009.
so 10 there'd have been like 2009, and we lost money, and I was like, not just about losing money, but it was just we had a really great lineup, and I was like, look, this is done. So I think we had 2 or 3 years off, and then we did the occasional party. And
well, let me pause you there at 2009. Let me pause you at 2009, because I want to roll you back to something that that I was really connected to. And we talk about the internet, the online, the forum. It was an infamous forum, right?
I didn't get involved because it got spicy. I mean, I'm just not, people probably know I'm not great on. I'm not great on Facebook or Insta. I'm not a heavy social media user. We have to for what we do. But yeah. I never got involved, but it was notorious, and it was spicy, and it wasn't for the faint-hearted. But it was also very funny. There's
extremely funny.
I
remember being on the sharp end of some of the wit when we had the Strings of Life crossed over and the vocal was added to it. It wasn't the best. They weren't my best fans on that forum, but it's good. I got broad shoulders. I took it all with a pinch of salt, and I gave as good as I got.
Damn right, and that's the way to look at it. And I forget, but I should have mentioned, and well remembered, I should have mentioned the forum. It wasn't something I indulged in, but people remembered it. But there was also a very good, knowledge side to it. There was, as much as the piss taking and the finger pointing. There was a lot of sharing of knowledge, which I think is the main reason for the.
But everyone was there. The majority of people were there. There was a lot of, train spotters and real learned people who knew their stuff. So, no one's going to go to a place just to get the piss taken out of them. So it was a great time. And then, of course, the demise of the scene, we go through cycles, don't we? So, and as you say, before, I wanted to ask you,
totally.
And in the back end of the 90s, the many people that I've spoke to on here, we were going over and doing the likes of Miami and stuff like that. I know Pete and Terry went over there. Were you involved as well, getting involved there? We're rolling back a little bit. But...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm still not allowed back to Miami because there's a sound guy. I hope he's not watching this. There's a sound guy there that wants to kill me. I think it's the only time we've ever knocked someone. But we had one of the biggest parties lined up. We had Sneak, Matty Helbron, Linda Clifford, PA, massive lineup. I've never had a worse night in my life. He turned up with the worst sound system and totally not the spec we asked for. Just stitched us up like proper. And I'm like, that's the only time I've, I hate saying this, the only time I've not paid someone, and I'm just like, mate, you didn't deliver, so sod you. But he was at our hotel door with a baseball bat with his heavies going, I know you're in there. I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, right, okay, well, tomorrow morning we're leaving a bit earlier, because he said, I'm coming back tomorrow. I know you're in there. And I'm like, right, well, we're going to hang out. There's a nice hotel at the airport. We're, like big tough guys. Let's just do a runner. So I said that we'll go and hang out at the airport hotel in the morning. So, sorry, but mate, you deserved it. So, no, not because I'm a coward. I've not been back since then. But I was thinking about going back next year, but in a disguise. But yeah, so we did that. We had a party the year before that was fantastic, and we hired the. I think it was either the local or the US synchronized swimming team. So we had these lovely these ladies in the pool doing all this synchronized swimming, and that was a super success. Actually, I think I did it with I think we did it with Ceylon. We teamed up with
DIY
the Midlands crew and did that.
Oh no, Wobble.
And
sorry,
it was
Wobble.
no. So and then it was fantastic, and then we went, right, next year let's have the bit, and we had everyone coming through to the party the following year. Like, we had the biggest attendance, and people literally walked in, walked out, and I was just like, this is the most embarrassing night of my life. And I think I just disappeared into my hotel room with my tail between my legs. And so unfortunately, it left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But we went, I mean, Terry and Pete and Rocky and Diesel had been going for years. And when, we started to get to know them through Soulsonic, and, so we went along, did 3 or 4 years, and it was great. I remember, Carl Cox dancing on the bar to Tenaglia, and Groovejet was a great club. And then he moved it to downtown Miami. And I remember going along there, and that was at Space in Miami. That was fantastic. But that was probably, that was late 90s, early 2000s. But whether I go back to Miami or not, we'll see.
Okay, well, forgive me for throwing back there, but I knew I had something in the back of my mind for some of those times. so let's go back to a trough in the timeline then, 2009, 2010. Tell us, what's on your mind?
I mean, I've left a big bit out.
Times.
Well, I mean, here's a good one. So it's mid 2000s. I've been promoting now for 10 years pretty successfully, and I've just moved. I've just bought my place in Harlesden, so I'm living there fully. And I'm like, why is there nowhere to go out in Harlesden? And I soon realised, because you don't open a bar in Harlesden. So I ended up opening a bar in Harlesden, which was my biggest mistake. And people say, do you have any regrets? And people say, oh, we'd never have regrets. I do. I regret opening it, and it's the only thing that I've ever had sleepless nights from. But you learn from it. But so that was around 2006. So I'd sort of had 10 years of the DJing, and then I was like, oh, do I want to be jumping on a plane every weekend, or on a plane, or going up the M1 every weekend? And now I'm loving it again, or not every weekend. But at that point, I was like, oh, and I, sort of fell in with some business people that really pushed me into, if I was left to my own devices, I wouldn't have had enough balls to go through with it. But you've got business people in the background that are like, come on, let's do this. So I think that was 2005, 2006, we opened Lodge. And it was, look, people have met there and got married, have had children from there, and people have had their best times. But for me, it was the worst time. But, there are a few positives to take from it. And the biggest positive on a business front was it shut down. It was losing a lot of money. I lost a reasonable amount of money on it, kept my flat, but it was the toughest times. But the same team of the business guys behind it then, I think saw that, right, look, we're just in the wrong area here. It's not, no one's done anything wrong or been slack or made, we took people like Quentin Harris, Derek Carr, Isn't Diz, Austin Larde to playing in Harlesden in a small bar for 150 capacity. It was Norman J, Trouble. We had some amazing nights in there, and people say that to me, but it was the best. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you weren't there every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when it was me sitting there pulling my hair out.
Spinners of Yarns says nothing will top the lodge. Reminiscing about that, about those times.
But see, there you go. I mean, look, we had some amazing times. We had I remember importing a load of sand, and we had a beach party, and I put a load of sand all over the place, and the bar manager wasn't happy. But we had fun times, and it was a great meeting point, and it was lucky. Its location was right by Willesden Junction Tube, so you could we had people coming from all over London because that is a really good train tube overground station. And it was a really lovely community vibe down there. But it was just, in hindsight, it's a great thing. Maybe we could have even just opened it on a Friday and Saturday and hopefully, we made some money that way. But yeah, it didn't work out financially. But, and this is where we met, it led to East Village. So the guys were like, I had a monthly residency at the Medicine Bar at that time in Shoreditch, and I knew from Rob, who owned it, he was looking to sell. So I said to the guys, look, there's an opportunity here about us moving into Shoreditch. And they were like, and at that time, I was like, my main concern was, and this is what, 2006, 2000, I should have done some more timelines earlier, but 2006, 2007, or maybe later. And my main concern was like, Shoreditch is, maybe it's a bit done. And we're talking about, so that's like, it's so long ago. I mean, it's definitely done now. I mean, God, it's just, I feel sorry for anyone that's trying to put a night on there now, but it wasn't.
We need to actually confirm that you are responsible for the beginning of the gentrification of the area, right?
I was responsible for the slow downfall of Shoreditch, I think. Yeah, the police didn't love me there, but we'll get to that in the end. But so that was so. Then I've gone from promoter, DJ, bar owner, and then suddenly club owner. And then it was like, not club owner. The guys, the money guys were behind it, but East Village was my name. It was great. I designed the club. I put in the sound system. It was literally your opportunity to build your own venue. So I was like, wow, and from playing Medicine Bar, I knew, no disrespect, it wasn't great. It wasn't a great DJ experience. It wasn't really a club. So, I said to Rob, the old owner, foolishly, why is your sound system so weak? You haven't got any neighbour issues. No. And, he's selling it to us. So it's like, no, there's no issues. I put in the biggest EV sound system. Opening night, we got Charisma guesting, hammering out. I mean, it was too loud anyway. But I mean, I always put, my guy Nick put in a great sound system. Far too much, but we're always like, just run it at half, never touch a red, always on the sound. So the opening night, I'm playing. I think I'm on before Charisma. I'm playing my mate Matty, who's keeping an eye on the doors, come down and gone, mate, there's a woman upstairs in a dressing gown. I'm saying you need to turn it down. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, she lives next door and it's really loud and she's going to call the police. And I'm like, no, I can blame Rob, but this is due diligence on my part for not checking it out. And he's gone, no, we've got no neighbour issues. Well, probably because they've had a tin pot sound system in there that is no fun playing on. So the first 3 months of East Village was just like neighbour battles. We rebuilt a wall in there with a cavity with it just, it was a nightmare. It was a constant nightmare to the point of, the landlord worked with us because it was the same landlord with the flat and kind of got rid of the slightly sort of edged out or just said to them, look, the club's here. When your lease is up, do you mind giving it up? So we then had to take the flats on and the staff would take them off us. So it was, there's all this shit going on behind the scenes as well as you're trying to run a club from Wednesday to Sunday. So but we got there. We got there, and
very much
I'm
the
very
media.
proud.
Sorry, very much the media darlings when you opened, right?
Well, I mean, Rosalia did the press. We had a good team. We had, I mean, it was. I think, yeah. We've always sort of, not so much recently, but we've always courted the press. Always, Dave Swindle's at timeout was always really supportive of what we were doing, and a lot of the, press was a big thing. But yeah, it was also, I was very proud of the sort of diverse programming. I started we had this is when Rodigan was like, Rodigan had sort of gone quiet. I mean, they're sitting on this legend. So we had him as a monthly resident on a Sunday just before he really blew up. When we opened, we had Giles Peterson doing, I think, every Thursday or so. Yeah, Matt, and then later on Perry Lewis doing a shiftless shuffle on a Sunday afternoon, and then I tried to keep Saturdays as house, and that was that's where we kind of we met really, and had some dealings together, and those were great nights, and people still speak fondly of it, and it was for me it was good times, and I was proud of that, because it was something, it wasn't just a one-off in a different venue. That was our venue, and we had Perry, Danny Crivet, Carl Craig. I mean, yeah, loads of people come and play, and great promoter DJs like yourself involved, and it was good times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did I know we've skipped over it, and it's probably not something that we can capture in this short conversation, but where did the Phil Asher connection begin for you? Because I would like to mention Phil. I would like to mention Phil in all of this.
Absolutely, I always think about Phil. Such a great guy, such an inspiration. Someone actually messaged me a couple of days ago trying to get hold of. He did a wonderful remix for my I had a record label as well, Transfusion. That Phil did a really great remix, and this guy was just, have you got a WAV of it? And I'm like, well, I don't even know where the vinyl is. In the loft somewhere, and it was just, I listened to it, I was like, that's such a great remix. So Phil, one of the early this would be when I had that residency at Canal Brasserie. So going right back to the early 90s, I did a Sunday party at I can't remember, it was off Kensington High Street, and so this would have been mid-90s. I did it with Joe Mills, Charlie Chester's wife, Ibiza Joe, and she was at Flying at the time. So we were the resident DJs, co-promoters, and we had DJ Sneak come and play. I mean, and this is 100-person basement. This is a great days when you could have these big, well, it wasn't massive then, but these DJs come through on a Sunday, and you wouldn't get shit off the agent, and they come and play for £100 and a couple of beers. They were young, they were keen, they wanted to meet people, they wanted to, it was great times. And then, but that was, Phil came down that night. I think probably Noel Watson introduced us, and Phil's such a lovely guy. Got on, who doesn't get on with him? Got on really well. And then sort of for anything I did West London, from that point, I did a thing called the Canal Parties down in Park Royal next to the canal. Any carnival party, anything West London, Phil was my go-to guy. But also any night he played at Faith, he played at Soulsonic, he played at Sunday Sonic. Any night I've done, Phil would have played there. So he was a mainstay with me, and until the horrible day that he passed. And I'm doing my. Every time I do my. I do a carnival event, and it's just like, I'd always think, Phil would be the first person I'd be on the phone to book. But so sad. Such a great guy, and a real loss for not just for the scene, but for many people, because he was a friend to so many people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I wanted to mention Phil and get that backstory, because after East Village, so let's get to how the demise of East Village then, how that came about.
Well, it's an awkward one because, oh God,
well, okay.
I mean,
skip past whatever.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. No, because people need to know. I mean, it was heartbreaking, and they were kind of friends, but they were business guys, and if anyone reads the Evening Standard, that the two main backers ended up in jail for money laundering, and so from having this club that I was really attached in every way. I had 30 staff that I've and then from overnight I get a call from my manager saying that there's 20 police here demanding to go through all the the office and everything. And he said, what do I do? And I said, well, look, if they've got warrants and and I said, how many of them are uniformed? And he went, only 2. And I went, oh shit, okay, that's it's the proper crime squad. I said, you just do what you got to do. I mean, me and the manager tried to put something together to get it back, but it's a lot of money, and
well, let me say,
it was a hard time.
At the very beginning, I did say my interviews are very relaxed. I don't do a lot of reading up, and I had completely forgotten about that. So forgive me for putting you on the spot there.
No. It's fine. I mean, it's it's out there. They were on the front of the Evening Standard. Bless them. Silly boys, and obviously, I mean, I had nothing to do with it. But I'm not going to lie and say, I knew what was going on in the background. But I was always like, just keep it away from what I'm doing. I'm all about the music. I just let me get on with what I want to do, and they might argue that maybe that kept the venue going, for me to be able to put on jazz dudes on a Sunday afternoon where people spend £3 at the bar.
Credible ignorance. What's the phrase?
Blissfully ignorant. So it was good times, and it was that knocked me for 6. That knocked my confidence. That was real. So that would have been 2000 and I don't know 13, 14, and it's a fickle business. There wasn't many people that kind of came out and supported after that, but that's this is the business we're in. When you're busy and you're hot, people want to know you, and when they don't, it's to be expected, really. So, yeah.
Okay, so
but that was a tough time.
So, where did that leave you mentally in afterwards? What were you thinking? Where you were going to go?
Yeah, there were some new owners came in, and that, again, people say don't have regrets. I totally regret working for them because they were just they were West End bar owners, and we were just trying to put a massive square peg in a round hole. So the new owners bought it and then approached me to run the club, but we were so. They, like I say, they were really, just cheesy commercial bar owners. Good at that. But I should have. I mean, I lasted I really don't know how I lasted. Probably, the money helped, and I wish I'd walked earlier. Because that led me getting back into what I really like doing. But I suppose if you're at a certain age, you're like. By this time, I'm spending more time in India and Spain, and I'm like, or maybe. Maybe my career is going to be 6 months in India. It's like escape that horrible UK winter.
Was that just a holiday?
Fast forwarding, but that was it.
Was that just sorry?
Well, we've been going to India as a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
We were originally just going out there just a winter getaway, and then we slowly. Actually got to sort of know more people there because we were going every year, and then we got invited to play at a big club there called Leopard Valley, and then I'm there and I'm looking at all these venues and I'm like, wow, we could do some.
And this is Goa. This is Goa that we're talking about, right? Goa.
South Goa, so Patnam, Palalem area, and I'm like, wow, this is a promoter in me and trying to do something different. I mean, this will be 5 or 6 years ago. Going, you know what? Why don't we try an event? So I literally just threw it out there, thinking maybe 30 people come, and we set it at 100 people. These passes sold out. So I was like, okay, well, how do we do this? I'm not a travel agent. No, I set it at 200. We won't get to 200, but we can just about manage 200. The infrastructure in the area and the venues can hold 200. We won't sell 200. We sold out in the first year. So we've got 200 people going over from all over, mainly London, but all over from the UK to these. Yeah, I mean, we just found there was it. It was, just places you go to eat, but they're closed on a certain day of the week. And I'm like, well, can we do an event here when you're closed? And they're like, yeah, well, of course, you're going to bring a load of beer guzzling Brits. Yeah, right. We'll have you all day long. So that went, and it was maybe 2000, it was just a year pre-pandemic. So 2019, so not that long ago, 4 years. And we did it, and it was so successful, but when we were there, just as we were leaving, we started to hear this sort of thing about, there's this corona thing happening in China, and everyone kind of laughed it off. So we were coming back in Feb, put the passes on sale for the year after, flying out. And then by March, the whole world's gone mad and it's lockdown. And so we're only doing it again properly. We've just been back on the holiday, but ended up playing, I think I did about 10 gigs in different bars and clubs when we're over there in January, but we're doing it next year properly. Again, taking out a load of DJs and bringing people over from the UK. So that was, but at that point, at that point of sort of 2000 pre-pandemic, I was like, right, maybe I've exhausted London. I've done everything in London. I've and we've not even talked about Love Vinyl. I've had a record store. I've had a record label. I've had a bar. I've had a club. I've DJ'd. It's like, maybe I've done everything there is to do. Let's maybe set something up in India. And then lo and behold, just we did our Faith. So that was just before pandemic. Faith. Someone luckily said to me, it's Faith's 20th anniversary next year. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe we should do something. Maybe we should do a party. So we booked the Cause up in Tottenham, great venue, and did the party. And it was, because it was meant to be our last party, everyone came out. And the Cause said it was one of the best parties, and they do good parties. And they said, this is one of the best parties we've had. And a few of the Defected crew came down and were like, this is a great party. And I think one of their staff, Simon Dawson, was a big fan of the fanzine. So in pandemic, we're all sitting there like, what are we going to do? I've got plans of India, or what is going to be post pandemic. And then we've got this offer really out of the blue from Defected to buy in or join forces with Faith. So it was really, absolutely beautiful timing. And so we were like,
what does that mean? What does that mean to an organisation to, again, forgive me, what does that mean to an organisation to have a powerhouse like Defected co-sign and jump on board?
I mean, it's ironic because you look back at the early fanzines, and they won't appreciate me saying this, but you look back at the early fanzines and we used to give Defected some stick, but it was all good-natured, So, but then it was fairly ironic that in the end, they're kind of backing us to get going. So, I mean, it was mainly about the fanzine. They wanted to get the fanzine up and running again. But I was like, well, look, we're not just a fanzine. This has got to be we want to be involved in your events. Hence, we host a stage at Defected Croatia, same Defected Malta, which are fantastic. But I was like, it can't just be about the fanzine. It's a proper, both parties, benefit from it, which is the essence of a good deal. But yeah, it's been amazing. It's put Faith back on the map. But there's a great fanzine that kind of the Defected get every three times a year, and hopefully at the events we bring something slightly different to them. But yeah, and it was beautiful timing and what was really depressing times. Yeah.
Do you feel the energy of the momentum from a new audience, a younger audience that they bring?
Absolutely. I mean, what we've got, we did our last party at Amira in over Easter a few weeks ago, and it's still an older crowd. I mean, you get your stats off RA anyway, where we sell our tickets. So the average age is 48. It was last time, so it's not a young crowd. But then you've got 60-year-olds in there, super cool. But then we've got, a lot of it now is it's the kids, it's the children of the parents that come along mainly to take their mum and dad home at the end of the night when mum and dad aren't looking too clever. It's the kids that are actually, in a better state. But we're getting a lot of that, and I just think, and then if you're selling on something like RA, you're going to get a certain amount of randoms that just kind of look, that looks good, I like that DJ, and then come in and they'll come up to me and go, well, look, we walked in, we were a bit freaked out. The younger kids, we're a bit freaked out because everyone's pretty old in here, but you guys are really friendly and you know how to party. We love it here. When's your next party? So we are. I can see it expanding again. I don't want to be this club that's just the same people getting older. I mean, I've got I'm old, so I've got nothing against that. Everyone is welcome, but it's really important that we've got every sort of mix at Faith, and age wise is important, and we do, we get, obviously it's mainly older, but we get early 20-year-olds coming in and really enjoying it. And hopefully feeling really welcome and safe,
Mm-hmm. So it isn't the crazy onslaught of this new young blood that I was probably picturing. You're still holding your own, and it's still all about your own community.
Totally, it's 80% of the old community and introducing 20% of new people, and I'd gladly have that as more new people coming in. But we know what our crowd want, and we're a multi-room venue party. We are always. I mean, I love putting 3 or 4 rooms on for Faith, but we always got to have at least 2 because there's always that disco element. But we got things coming up in later in the year that have got 4 or 5 rooms. We'll have a reggae room, a Balearic terrace, disco room, a soulful house room, and a tougher house room. We used to do turn mills, and it was 6 rooms. They were great fun to program, and brings a real diversity to the event as well, crowd wise.
Well, musically, it's always been important about the music, and so to keep the credibility is a big word for you, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, 100%. We're very careful who we book, and we don't want to be. I mean, we can't be daft and go and book a load of that might be well known young DJs that our crowd aren't going to know, but we will always introduce 1 or 2 that our crowd will just be like, who the hell is this? But we're like, no, you need to check this. But we'll always, I think it's a mixture of a lot of the heritage DJs and then bringing in some new DJs and new blood and really mixing that to keep it interesting, but not shooting ourselves in the foot as promoters by going, our crowd going, who are all these DJs? So it's a mixture of new and old.
It's good that your crowd are willing to trust you. It's all about trust. I've been with you for long enough. I'm aware. I'll carry on.
No, go on. No.
I'm aware that the time is rolling on. I want to bring you back, and then I'm going to roll you forward. So you mentioned Love Vinyl. Is there much of the story that you want to talk about there? Because
No, I mean, it was good time. It was good times. It was like, again, people said to me, "What are you opening a record store for? There's no money in that," and I knew it wasn't going to be a money maker. I was just like, I was living in Harleston. I was living in Shoreditch at the time. It was 2 minutes from my flat. It was via the council, so that it was cheap. It was, reasonable rent, so it wasn't a big risk. But then I'm like, well, look, I don't really know record. I know a certain amount. I know these. I know my music, but I'm not a record. I'm not an absolute expert. So that's why I brought in Zaf and Jake. I had the space. And I said, guys, do you want to get on board? And luckily they did, because we had 2 counters, the new counter that I ran, and then the second hand rarities that Jake and Zaf ran. And it was fine, but it was just I was starting to it made so little money. It was like, okay, that's not so bad. It was just stopping me doing promotions, because at this point between when Faith had sort of gone fallow, and we were leading Kenoy at Loft Studios in West London. So that I was still doing stuff, and we had Tony Humphries back there. This is 2000, like 2016, 17, and we literally just ran it. One of Frankie Knuckles' last London gigs. We had Spen and Charisma, but we were all. But it was the date was just. It was a shit name. It was a good party, but it was all based on who the guest DJs were. You know, we had Timmy Registered, Crivet. We did an interesting one.
That's always going to be.
Greg Wilson, the first time they played together. That was
Sorry, I'm getting.
Yeah, well, that was awful because it was.
Go on, mate. Go on.
It was. That was. I mean, Loft Studios. Yeah, Loft Studios was awful because you dry hire the place, so you put on a party and it's like 30 grand to put on the party because you take the bar as well, but it's like, you know, it's proper. You've got to make this work, otherwise you'll lose. Yeah, absolutely. So that kept me doing those things with Tim in the sort of mid 2000, sort of 2015 for about. Yeah, we did 12 parties. All good, all really good. But I've totally lost my train of thought there.
We were talking about Love Vinyl and then how things were getting a little bit tight for you. I'm just checking. There's absolutely nothing wrong on my computer, so I'm really confused as to why
you got me, Andy? With you got me?
Yeah, I've got you. You're back now.
Cool. Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, where were we before we were
talking about Love Vinyl. We took on Love Vinyl. We were talking about Loft Studios and the pressure of trying to find the 30 grand from the dry hires.
Yeah, Love Vinyl. So yeah. So Love Vinyl was but Love Vinyl. I mean, it wasn't, and I was doing those events, and I was just finding it was taking too much time away from the event. So I just said to Zaf and Jake, "Do you want the keys?" Handed it over, and the guy, you know, they're the experts, and they're there to this day, and it's still a really well respected shop. And we had some great installs down there, and this, you know, a lot of this is about community and you know, faith parties are about that. It's everyone catching up with each other. But you know, Love Vinyl, there's a lot of that, you know, and the installs were great fun. And I mean, it was a pretty stress-free venture that ended very amicably and easily, and you know, no money lost, and my record collection bolstered. So, you know,
I love that. Okay, so my apologies, you know, if anyone's just
the sleepless nights of the lodge.
If anyone's recently jumped in and are thinking, what on earth's going on? We're having a little bit of buffering, but I think we're getting out to the back of it. I'm completely bewildered as to why it's happening, because when we were talking earlier, it was absolutely fine, wasn't it? Do you want to maybe try and disconnect? Because I don't want to, and we're not going to be here much longer, but I don't want to spoil the back end of this interview.
No, it seems.
Do you want to jump off and then jump back on again?
Yeah,
try
sure.
That?
I'll do it now.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. There's me twice. Let's wait for him to come back on again. So let me just say hi to everyone that's been commenting. Dean, thank you for commenting. Magoo, Cy, Gracia, Barry Foldout is talking about Sundays at East Village. Jason Wassell is enjoying the conversation. Thank you. Mr. Magoo says, no one likes a gurning 50-year-old. And there's a fair few of them out and about it now. Right, so forgive me because I'm just screen sharing at the moment. Let me change to this. So it's just me on my own. We don't need two of me, do we? Wait for him to come. So how are we all feeling? Any questions that you want me to ask you guys before we start to wrap this up? Let's see if we're working any better now. Tom, good evening. Right, are you back? Have I got you?
You got me? I can hear you.
Yes, I've got you. We're back now. Tom Chubb just jumps back into the chat and he says, thanks for playing my track on the Faith Show, Stu.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Yeah, and that's another, you know, it's another nice defected hookup, having the Faith Show once a month on Defected Broadcasting House, and with that we really do make sure it's all new music. As even though we're older and the crowd's older, we are not one of these clubs that are just going to play classics, or far from it. You only hear a few. But on the radio show, you'll never hear any. It really is about pushing new music, and that's really what we're about. With Faith as well, good new house music.
Right. Okay. So, do you feel that we have gotten to the point where we can start to talk about Amor Andalucia, or is there a little bit more of the story before we get to that?
Oh, sorry, Andy, I'm losing you again. Bloody internet. Go on.
I was asking, I was saying, have we covered all of the story before we start talking about Amor Andalucia, or is there a little bit more before we get to that point?
Yeah. No. I mean, we've covered everything, and that's the new project. That's where I'm heading next week. To wonderful southern Spain, and we just mentioned Goa. That sort of came off the back of Goa. It's the area in Spain we're doing at Alarin is somewhere I know quite well. And after doing Goa, I've seen all these lovely spots in Alarin. I was like, maybe I could do something in Spain. So last year we launched Amor Andalucia, which is it's similar to what we do in Goa, but it's more condensed. So I think it's 7 parties in 7 days, which I think scares people off. But that some of them are quite gentle, and it's much about the locations we found are just incredible. It's a really stunning part of the world that people don't know that much. I mean, it's only half an hour from the Costa and only half an hour from Malaga Airport, but it's up in the mountains, and we've just found these beautiful villas, amazing venues, and a big one. There's a club on the beach that I do with Terry Hobbs called Florida Beach, which is the main thing on the Saturday. That's the only one that's not private to the pass holders. So it's only for 120 people. We take 120 people over. On the Saturday, Florida Beach is for like 600 people. So all the expats, all the Spanish can join in. So it becomes this bigger beast on the Saturday night, which is that will be the 27th of May. So but this is one. I mean, it's not a money maker as such. But it's a bit of love. It's a bit of fun. Most of the people, half the people come in, I consider mates. Well, they're all friends, that end up coming at the end, but half of them are actually, I think, mates are supporting, so it's a lovely opportunity to catch up and spend some time with some old friends. And the food, the food's incredible over there. The weather is obviously, 10 times better than moody England. So yeah, it's some fun. It's something close to my heart, an area I love. And I mean, it can't really grow. The venues I've chosen only take 100. The others they're small, but they're beautiful gardens, and just wonderful. Something different. And I think when people do these, a lot of these events in Spain or mainly Ibiza, I mean, I know you do something great yourself, and I know it's really really well attended and well loved, but they tend to be in the same venue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you kind of stick with something, which is a lot of ease for some people, and my one is different as you have to travel around, so bit of a ball ache if you don't want to travel too much. But I think with the feedback I got was, okay, oh God, we got to get in a taxi again. But when they walk into the venue, they're like, oh my God, you found another one that's incredible. Where did you find this? So it's interesting for people, I think, just to, walk into it's nothing better than dancing, under the stars next to a pool, or, under a palm tree, next to lovely people with a great DJ on. It's something different, and it seems to have we're nearly sold out, so it seems to have caught on. We're not selling it off the back of any huge DJ names, just solid people I DJ with in the UK.
You say that you have got a fair few respected, reputable, and definitely capable DJs on that lineup.
Oh no! I'm not underselling it. No, these are all great, but I'm not. Let's put it this way: I'm not paying the US tax on any. Any.
I hear that.
Any DJs.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's another event for people to squeeze into their diaries for next year. I'm happy to give it a good plug for you. Amor Andalucia, they can find out by checking out your profile on Facebook. I think we've had a really great in-depth conversation. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. I've got to know your backstory. Gremlins aside, it hasn't taken away from the wonderful chat that we've had. It's forced me to keep my mouth shut, actually, so I'm not talking over the top of you. Any final words to share before you have to scoot off and prepare food?
I know I'm going to be in trouble if I don't cook dinner. No, just thank you for having me, and it's really real pleasure chatting to you. And I've genuinely I've took the time to catch up with your previous chats over the weekend, and you've had some great people on, like Alex Lowe's from Southport and Jeff Young and Phil and Alex. So if you've enjoyed the people that are watching and listening, keep checking what you're doing. It's really good, Andy.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
And now the internet's gone.
You saying that.
That's my fault.
It's okay. I don't know what it is. Sometimes these things happen. It was fine earlier, wasn't it? I think I'll just say thank you and have a great party in a couple of weeks.
Well, we got there by hook or by crook.
We did. I'll let you get off because otherwise we're going to be talking all over each other until the end. Thank you, man. Respect.
I'll change my internet provider tomorrow. Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Andy. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Take care. Okay, so we did get there in the end. We got there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Here on the screen, I have a picture of a gentleman that I wanted to actually draw reference to. We lost this week, Mr. Jason Stafford, one of the promoters behind The Only Ways Garage in Birmingham. I just wanted to show some love for Jason and send a shout out to all of his friends and family today. So that's there. And I'll talk more about Jason next time on the show. Thank you to Stuart. A great conversation. I'll take this off. We can see next week on the show, celeb status. I think that sums up this gentleman perfectly. We're going to be a little bit later in the UK at 8 o'clock. I'll be talking to the one and only Spoonie. If there is ever a DJ that has done well for himself, it's that gentleman there. I have had him on talking before when we spoke for the Soulful House Mafia. Spoonie spoke alongside Chrissy T. We were talking about the US house and UK garage movement side by side. But I'm going to get a little bit more about Spoonie's background, and he's going to be talking about a big event that he's got coming up soon as he puts on his own weekender. Okay, so let me go to the chat. Thank you, Tom, for joining in. Anna Corrigan says, Woody's in West London. A great night that was. I forgot all about it. If you can remember the 90s, you weren't there. You're not wrong. Mr. Magoo is asking Stuart to reissue the Stussy Faith t-shirts, and Mr. Dads joins us and says, yo. Okay, right. That is about it for this evening. Thank you for checking it out. Thank you for subscribing, Barry. I see it pop up on the screen. If you're watching live, if you are watching the recording, then as Stuart said, please do take a moment to go back and check out some of the guests. Over the last 2 years, I've interviewed some of the biggest names in the UK, soul, house, northern soul, the early all-dayers, up and down the country. I really have had some brilliant conversations. Do go and check them out. I will say, if you've recently subscribed, then your name will be here on the screen. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me. And if you like the video as well, it will enable me to get in the line of sight of more people. On the right-hand side, all of the crew who support me on a regular basis, and a little plug for what I do as Ward's websites on a daily basis. Thanks for joining me, guys. See you later.